and welcome to the My Slice of Life podcast, where we explore the beauty and the magic in the everyday. I'm Sharon O'Neil, your Highland host, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of a plant many people overlook, or worse, try to get rid of. It can only be the humble dandelion. If you've always thought of dandelions as nothing more than weeds popping up between cracks in the pavement or spreading across lawns, you're in for a big surprise, because in folklore they are anything but ordinary. Just a little housekeeping before we crack on, so I can let you know the description for this episode is loaded with information this week, as well as the links to the other things I do, such as the blog and the main YouTube channel. I'm including a lot of websites about the folklore of dandelions, and also a few which discuss how you can use dandelions in your own life, be it in salads or herbal remedies and the like. It is a lot of information, so please use them and let me know if you find anything in particular which you find interesting. Right then. Today, we're going to uncover some of the legends, symbolism, and surprising history of dandelions, and why, quite frankly, they deserve a little more of our respect. They are one of the first flowers to show up in spring for our pollinators, and they have quite a tale to tell. So with that in mind, I'm going to start by telling you a story. So, sit back, get comfy, and let's begin. And I'm taking this story from a video on YouTube on the channel Story Crow. I've referenced him before, and there are a few variations of this tale, but I liked this one the best. There was once a humble gardener who lived in a little cottage, and he decided he wanted to do a lovely thing for his wife and for anyone who walked by his little house. He was going to make the nicest flower garden the world had ever seen. He was going to plant all sorts of things like roses and orchids, just all the most amazing flowers in all sorts of colours. But he had a problem. His garden was beset by weeds. Dandelions kept popping up all over the place, and they were really hardy, wouldn't die off no matter what the man tried. He tried covering them up, he tried digging them out, he tried pouring vinegar on them, he tried everything he could think of, but they just kept coming up and ruining his garden. In the end, he went to the royal palace and asked the head gardener of the royal gardens what he should do, and that old wise gardener nodded sagely, smiled and said, "Ah, I used to have the very same problem with dandelions when I was your age." The man asked him, "But what did you do? How did you get rid of them? I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried everything." And as he was speaking, the wise old gardener kept nodding. When the man had finished speaking, the wise man said, "Yes, I've tried that. I've tried all the things you have mentioned and more, and none of them worked. In the end, I decided to love them." And so that's what the young gardener decided to do too. Acceptance. That's what we need when it comes to dandelions. Not of defeat, but of their amazing qualities. Before we get into the legends and uses of dandelions, let's just look at the actual plant itself. The dandelion, or Taraxacum officinale, gets its name from the French Dandelion, which you probably heard don't mean teeth, lion of the lion. And if you take a leaf of the dandelion, turn it sideways, you see the little jagged edge, just like lion's teeth. So there you go. So Dandelion, the French lion's tooth, the reference to that sort of tooth-like leaves that they have. But it has a long list of alternative names like cankerwort, priest's crown, puffball, swine's snout, or even pissenlit, which everyone knows means to pee the bed. It's a tough, resilient little plant that can grow almost anywhere. Fields, pathways, gardens, hillsides, even by the side of the road. These are tough little guys who never give up. And every part of the dandelion is edible. The leaves, the roots and the flowers can all be eaten in one way or another. And if you check the references in the description for the episode, you will find a few ideas to get you started. I'll put some links to sites that have got quite a lot of recipes to get you started there. And just before we move on to some of the meanings given to dandelions, I need to take a little pause to give a shout out to budgetseeds.co.uk, who are offering my UK listeners a 10% discount when you use the code SO'Neil10 on their site. So if you're needing some squash, seeds, maybe some peas, lettuce, whatever it is you're about to sow, get them at budgetseeds.co.uk. Get 10% off their already very low prices. They've even got organic seeds available too. Use the link below, get your discount, and a very big thank you to Budget Seeds for supporting such a small channel. It really is greatly appreciated. Okay, so now back to our dandelions. And to us today, dandelions might be seen as friend or foe, but to ancient people, they were magical. In the spring, when they make their first appearance, the bright yellow flowers represent the sun, cheerful, radiant, and life-giving. When the flower turns into a little puffball of seeds, it symbolises the moon, round, silver, and delicate. And when those seeds float away in the wind, they mirror the stars scattering across the sky. So in one life cycle, the dandelion is the sun, the moon, and the stars. It's no wonder ancient people saw it as a bridge between heaven and earth. In traditional Chinese medicine, dandelions were used over 1,000 years ago to treat infections, digestive issues, and inflammation. The plant was seen as a detoxifier, pulling bad energy or illness from the body, but not just physically, spiritually too. In medieval Europe, it was believed to purify the blood, stimulate dreams, and increase psychic powers. Monks grew it in monastery gardens, and healers prescribed it to treat everything from liver ailments to melancholy. It's said by some that dreaming of the dandelion plant indicates troubled times ahead, although I did see somewhere else that they said it actually represents a sign of good health to come, whilst burying dandelions in the northwest corner of the garden can bring you favourable winds, if your garden's been suffering from some sort of storm damage, I would assume. Placing a tea of dandelion by the bed before sleep calls spirits to you, and drinking the tea is believed by some to increase psychic abilities. In Victorian flower language, floriography, I believe it was called, dandelions symbolised loyalty and enduring love. Why? Because they return again and again, no matter how many times they're pulled up or stepped on. And in Slavic folklore, dandelions were placed in windows to keep bad spirits away. And then there's Norse mythology. Some legends say dandelions were sacred to Freya, the goddess of love, beauty and fertility. A gift of dandelions was meant to honour her or invoke her protection. Now, it wouldn't be a folklore episode if we didn't mention the fairies at some point, so I want to read you something I found on a site called thestorieslatales.blogspot.com. It could be LA Tales, I'm not sure. Anyway, it says this. According to one legend, in ancient days the earth was populated by fairies, elves and gnomes. When the first humans arrived, they could not see the elves, fairies and gnomes, which was a big problem because they kept stepping on them. The gnomes and elves began hiding behind rocks and underground. The fairies were too fond of the sunlight to stay underground long, and due to their love of the sun, they tended to dress in bright yellow gowns, which made it difficult for them to hide in the fields. In desperation, they turned themselves into dandelions. You'll notice that if you step on a dandelion, they spring back. This is because they hold the spirit of the fairies. Did you know? When you blow on a dandelion clock, it is said that the seeds are really fairy transportation In return for helping a fairy on its way, you were given a wish." End quote. And perhaps one of the most famous bits of dandelion folklore is the belief that if you blow on a dandelion seed head while you make a wish, then your wish will come true. And this idea goes back centuries. In old European traditions, blowing on a dandelion was a way to send your thoughts and dreams to the spirit world. If you blew the seeds in the cemetery, they would carry your words to the dead. Some thought the direction the seeds flew showed where the spirit was resting. North for peace, south for danger, east for renewal, west for rest. Another take on this was to send loving thoughts to someone alive and well. Again, you would blow the seeds as you were thinking about the person, and they would carry your love to the person you were thinking about. There are several variations of this idea of blowing the seeds off the seed head, or clock, or even fairy clock as they're known. If you could blow all the seeds off with one breath, it meant your true love loved you back. But if seeds remained, it meant you'd have to wait a little longer, or perhaps find someone new. Children were told that if they blew on a dandelion and all the seeds flew away, it meant summer would last longer. In Victorian England, girls would blow on dandelions to see how many years it would be until they married. The number of breaths it took to clear the seed head was the number of years they had to wait. Alternatively, it was also the number of children they would have. Another idea says that when you blow the seeds away, the number remaining tells you how many years you're going to live. And probably the one any kid can tell you is that you blow on the seeds to tell the time. However many breaths it takes you is your answer. Due to its diuretic properties, dandelions became associated with bedwetting, and children throughout the ages were told not to pick it because of this. I remember being told that as a kid. As one contributor on plantlore.com said, quote, "I'm now in my 60s. Mum wouldn't let us touch dandelion after 4 p.m. as she said it would make us go to the loo all night, but before 4 p.m. it was all right." End quote. But someone else on the site said this about the dandelion, which I thought was interesting. I'm just going to read what it says on the site. "I'm over 70 years old and was born and bred in Inverness-shire. I spent many summers in the company of my grandmother, who was very knowledgeable about potions and cures from indigenous plants and flora. Dandelion leaves were eaten to help arthritis sufferers." End quote. I thought that was interesting. Dandelions symbolise resilience and emotional healing because they grow everywhere, even in poor, rocky soil. People saw them as reminders that we too can survive and thrive, even under difficult circumstances. And I did mention they were known as the fairy clock, and dandelions were used to tell the time and predict the weather. The flowers open and close at regular times, but if they stay closed, you can be sure rain is on the way. Dandelions were, and still are, highly valued in traditional medicine. Ancient Greeks used them as a remedy for digestion and liver health, and in medieval Europe, herbalists praised dandelions as a cure-all plant. Some healers believed that eating the first dandelion greens of spring could cleanse the blood and protect you from sickness for the rest of the year. But if you think its uses are all in the ancient past, you're very much mistaken. Today, dandelions are used as a diuretic, for liver detox, as a digestive aid, as an anti-inflammatory, for regulating blood sugar, to help with anaemia, immune support, to stimulate bile production, and much, much more. During World War II, when imports of rubber were cut off, people experimented with using the latex from dandelion roots to make rubber. They also turned to dandelions as a source of vitamins when food was scarce. It was also not uncommon for people to use the roots as a coffee substitute when they couldn't get the real thing, something people still do today. Folklorists note that in times of hardship, people often turn to plants like the dandelion as both a literal and symbolic reminder. Even in adversity, life finds a way. The dandelion's stubbornness, Its cheerfulness and its ability to spread far and wide became a metaphor for human resilience. Today, many people, sadly, see dandelions as just weeds to be sprayed and pulled. But if we look through the lens of folklore, dandelions are symbols of hope, healing, love, and dreams. There's a certain magic in a plant that asks for nothing, no cultivation, no pampering, and yet gives so much. The dandelion doesn't worry about being loved. It simply shines. I think that's a lesson we could all take to heart. The dandelion story is quiet, but it's everywhere. It's in your yard, on the roadside, in old herbal books and whispered superstitions. It's a story of magic, medicine, survival, and the stubborn beauty of things we're told not to want. If any plant deserved a little more of our respect, it must surely be this one. So the next time you see a dandelion, don't step over it, don't rip it out, say hello, make a wish, and remember, this little lion's tooth has been telling stories for a long, long time. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the folklore of the dandelion, and I hope the next time you see one, you'll see it with new eyes. Perhaps you'll see it as a small golden sun, a silver moon, or a handful of travelling stars. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you'd leave a comment, share it with a friend, or any other positive type of interaction you can think of. I'll be back next week with some more fascinating folklore of our trees and plants. But until then, you take care of your wee self.